I think Ubin is almost like an alternate universe, different from the mainland, from Singapore, where there's hustle and bustle, and then things are moving fast with high-rise buildings. Here, in a very strange way, every time you come to Ubin, you have to wait for the boat. Time somehow slows down, and then you come over here, you realize that maybe Singapore does not always have to be the same.
He engaged me first in the role as a facilitator in the mapping portion of Ubin. It's when we actually had like a big potluck session over there. Then we had crabs, we have pig trotters, we have, a lot of food there.
We've had 10 what we call the makan sessions. Really, these 10 makan sessions are part of our mapping and focus group workshops that allowed us to find out more about their movements, like every day, where do they go, right? So do they stay just within the radius of their shop? Do they just only stay within the area where they live? How far do they go on the island? So we were trying to map it on a physical map. That's one. We were also trying to find out what kind of challenges or difficulties they have been facing in more recent times. So then we can figure out what the gaps are, current gaps that we could potentially respond in our artwork and potentially also do further research into.
Tonight, you will see two performances. What I did was that because 2 years ago when we were here, we were already doing physical movement in the state. So I thought that it would be interesting for us to see how text could be used on this island.
It's not this island that's important. When I was a girl, my teacher told me that the earth is like a person. You don't just treat the head when it's having a headache, you don't just examine its leg. When it hurts, you're a whole person and everything is connected.
Ocean Hotpot is the theatre performance or theatre work in progress to find out how we can create a work on Ubin Island with as little carbon footprint as we can. What we hope to do is to let the space tell the story, because it's about the environment, but also the idea of putting a show on Ubin. I also don't think that we should disturb the natural place itself. So instead, allowing the space to speak to us is what I think we're exploring. We continue just now our exploration, mostly about nature. Let's move on to time. But instead of doing individual, let's do group. Can you all come up with a movement sequence or a composition sequence showing the impossible passing of time?
So the whole project actually has two clear intentions here. One, the way we practice it. Can we work with the resources here? Can we do it in an ecologically responsible way? And it's a slippery slope, or it's a difficult route, because when we say ecologically responsible, what does it mean, right?
I started researching online regarding eco-arts and how I can use my traditional way of doing sound to contribute to this project. I've been doing sound with electronic equipment. This time around, I'm trying to find a way to be eco-friendly and not use any electricity if possible, and also trying to keep the options of battery to the minimal. So I'll be trying to use like a flute or a wind instrument and maybe a chime or a bell. It started when I shifted to this new house, which was quite windy, and I thought that having things outside would determine when is a good time to do laundry or not to do laundry. So then I installed my first wind chime, and so now I've got like 6 wind chimes outside my house, which creates a nice soundscape, and thought that I should experiment with that sound.
So there was this thing where I retrofit it. So basically, I put in like RGB LED strips in there, and then for now we are going with like some kind of a remote control thing behind here on battery. So then it's mobile, and then you can carry it around. So this is something that is my response to the script that's being staged for this. So I guess actually practicals for me in this piece would be very important because it will be something if the actor needs to be lit and there's probably nothing there that I can use or I have limited power, then it's something that they have to take around and be talking. But all this all boils down to this idea of being more mindful of how we use electricity and what is really required, as in really to scrutinize each and every of our options and decisions.
So this is almost like a kind of a mini prototype of how we imagine the residency will be, where the artists will really be using the space, using materials here instead of bringing in additional materials here to make work. So we have Lynette Quek actually making 3 installations during this year.
I think it was the first night I stayed over. It was the very calm wind. So I was like, okay, this feels okay to stay over. So all you can hear is just like, you can really hear the howling of the wind coming from the coast through the doors. Sometimes I close the doors. But when it starts to rain, depends on the intensity. Sometimes it's a little bit too overpowering for me. So everything is shaking. So the roofs makes a very huge water or metal sounds, but it's very hard to describe because you hear all the resonances coming from just above you when I'm sleeping. So I was thinking of doing more wind-activated stuff because being in Ubin, it feels like it's being a coastal island on its own. It's very windy. And I didn't want to do anything with technology or electricity. So I guess this is technology in a very different form.
At the same time, we are also testing out an app that we developed. This app uses 2 important things. One is stories that we've collected through our various interviews with residents here. In fact, we've used some of these interviews in our show in 2022 during the Singapore International Festival of the Arts. The show formed a kind of audio tour. And we are now creating this app using some of the stories that come from the audio tour.
I was born in Pulau Ubin according to my older sister. My age when I moved to Pulau Ubin, 3 years old lah. Moved to Pulau Ubin because follow father who worked there. I left Pulau Ubin in the 90s like that. Like my life there, to find food is easy lah.
So this audio app actually then will direct people going from places to places. And this is the part that we incorporate Lynette's installation installed at all these various sites. We're hoping to try to see whether we can develop an app such that people will come to Ubin and not just cycle and then go on an adventure. But when they move from place to place through the app, they can actually hear the stories of the place.
But yeah, I mean, all the installations that I decided to do were picked up from different keywords from the audio recording. So I actually identified certain words that I had some responses to. This one I think was light and longing and looking out to see. Those were the very striking words to me.
Any work that starts from the space, working with the space, we probably need a bit more time to evolve it. I don't think it's a kind of work where the artists decide on the interventions. I think it's not about artists deciding what is good for Ubin. Through a long engagement, then we'll know what the thing will look like. But in order to get there, definitely what we need to do is to get a permanent base here. And it comes in the form of creating a residency program so that the artists can stay here, then work closely with the residents here. And that's why we are hoping to get, if possible, a house here where we can host a residency program where throughout the years we can have different artists coming in.
Besides the Project 12 house and the arts residency program that Heng Leun spoke about, I think for us to be able to have regular programming on the island, that arts-based projects, we are also hoping that there can be an arts triennial in time to come. So in the year that we don't have an arts triennial, then perhaps the other programs can happen. And hopefully this then will also bring visitors into the island, then benefit the residents and the community here as well.
It's not just for an artist, to find a place to make work, but ultimate aim is the artists are involved in the building of a community here. Going back to the vision of what Project 12 is, I think Project 12 really wants to envision Ubin becoming a community that embraces human nature and is sustainable. And we hope that art will play an important role in creating this kind of sustainable lifestyle.